Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show, the very dark pre-show. Where's the lights? Let's get some lights on. Get this thing started. If you've tuned in for the live event, welcome. If you're watching this in a replay, you can fast forward about 10 minutes and we'll get things started. Or you can just hang out here and watch the pre-show. Watch the lights come on. Look at that. Okay. So far, so good. I can't hear myself because my headphones are a garbled mess of wires. This is what happens when you don't do a live event for 2 weeks, that things just tend to get a little bit tangled up. But now it's the new year. Have we stopped saying Happy New Year? I guess not. I guess this is the end of it. We're finishing it up right now. That goes by fast, doesn't it? All right. We now no longer are tangled. Which is left and which is right? This one. Okay. All right. Let's get that in there. Test two, test two, test two. Now I can hear myself. Let's do a camera check. I have not done a camera check this year. So height-wise, that's pretty good. I'll take it. I like it. Camera 2. Camera. Oh, camera 3. I want to get something on my camera 3 that's actually worth looking at. So that, see? I'll know what that is. It's just a picture. These things come up. It's the bird feeder. Let's see how things are going in the backyard. I haven't seen lately. Whoa, they're loud. That's what they are. Bring up the Skype for later. All right, get that ready to go. Camera 3. There we go. See? How about camera 3 with me? There we are. And camera 4 is the presentation, which currently is the same show there. All right. That's all good. Need some more food out there, don't I? All right. Let's change the front page of the website so that it shows that my A+ study group is right now. Click here to join us. And it should go to /live. Save changes. And I think that's good. Oh, do we have Socrative up? We do. We do have Socrative up. Get all of that up. This is up. That's good. Great. That's delicious. That's delightful. That's lovely. We need to bring up course notes for later so people can see them. And where's the other ones? Right here. And let's get rid of the thumbnail. There. Da-da. All the stuff that goes on. Over in this side, let's go to here. Probably going to need to get my GTS learning stuff going too. Okay. All right. 4.5 minutes, 5.5 minutes to showtime. Showtime. Let's get iPad going. We're going to need to go to Keynote. And it found it. All right. I am a little bit under the weather. That's how I got that raspy voice this morning. All right. So I just got my update. Let's see if the Twitter went through. The tweeter. Google Calendar says I'm doing a thing. Hey, tweeter. What else? That worked. So emails must have gone out and the other stuff as well. Thank you, Google Calendar. What else? So I think we're good. I think the stream is running. My voice is working somewhat. I'm sorry you got no email. You have the old slow email? Are you on net zero? Let's see what the emails are doing. Oh, I am well medicated, I assure you. I am under a nurse's care, a Florida board certified registered nurse. All right. We've got 3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes. It's just going to be raspy today, isn't it? Where's my other... there it is. My Serious Cinnamon. My Singer's Saving Grace Serious Cinnamon. We're going to need to use some of this today. It's going to be that kind of day. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Let's do this. That going. It's better already. What's beneath my monitor? Game Gear? I don't know what that is. Oh, it isn't. It does kind of look like that, doesn't it? That's the TriCaster console. Because it has the little arm there for flipping back and forth and fading in and out. Seems like you should be shifting with that. The only game thing related on this desk you can't see because my big head's in the way. It's the Logitech G13 gaming pad. Oh, there it is. See? Nice. Nice. No control keys and alt keys for me. It's like there's a separate button for everything. And that does come in handy when you're trying to heal up the raid. I do play the MMOs. Well, the one MMO. I've been playing World of Warcraft since vanilla. Since it was vanilla flavored. What else? I think we're ready. I think we can do a thing. 1 minute. 1 minute, Mr. Sinatra. No, that's it. Just all I have time for is one thing. World of Warcraft. That's it. I don't have time for anything else. Would I like to play other things? Yes. But I'm not. I got stuff going on. I got things happening. Okay. I think we're ready. I think this is about time for the thing. I still have a vocal zone, though, in my mouth. And, of course, I got rid of all of the garbage that was strewn about. It was like a fraternity party happened in here. I had to clean everything up. And, of course, threw away all the tissues, all the... Here, we'll do this. Okay. Now that, one quick hit of the singers, and let's get started, shall we? Oh, that's nasty. What kind of fraternity parties do I go to? None anymore. Oh, but there were days. There were days. And with that, are we recording? Yes. Are we recording here? Yes. We're recording online. let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new year. It's January 2017, and you have arrived here at the Professor Messer A+ study group for the month of January. My name is James Messer. I will be your host for this hour of questions and answers about the A+ certification. I'm also taking questions in the chat room, so if you're on professormesser.com/live, you can ask questions there, and I will try to answer questions. And we will also be answering questions live online. I'll show you in a moment how you can do that. We all participate together. Unfortunately, you have to be here live to participate online and watch all of these things go by. But if you're watching the replay, you can just follow along on the screen, and you'll see everything you need to know right there. The A+ certification is probably one of the most popular IT certifications in the world. So it's nice that we can get together and do some Q&A and help you study to get this very important foundational certification. There's a lot that goes on here when I'm not doing the live events. There's always something happening. You can generally follow what's going on professormesser.com/YouTube, professormesser.com/Twitter, professormesser.com/Instagram. You just type in professormesser.com/a-thing, and hopefully it'll find that thing you're looking for. Also, don't pay full price for your vouchers. If you're planning to take any CompTIA exam, you can, of course, go to professormesser.com/vouchers, and you will indeed see that there is a discount there. So that's kind of nice to have. Don't pay full price. Have at least save a little bit of money when you're walking in the room to take your exam. And if you want to have an offline version of all of my videos, these are all of my training videos for all of my courses are available online every minute of every video. They're all free. I know, it's crazy. But some people want an offline version of it, and you can find out more about that at professormesser.com/download900, referring, of course, to the 900 series A+ exam. If you already have your A+ certification, then you could use this hour of webinar time to earn a webinar CEU. So that's one thing you can do is go out to CompTIA, and on their website, they've got details of how you submit all of those. But sometime in this first hour, I will give you already certified A+ people a special code and instructions on how you can, of course, get that continuing education unit credit. But you have to listen for the instructions and the special code word, because I'm not going to tell you any other place at any other time how to do this. That's part of the process. I know that if I get the request from you and it's in the right form, then I know you were listening and you were here. So that's sort of the idea behind doing that. There are, of course, 2 CompTIA exams. One just retired. So we used to have this 900 series exam and the older 800 series exam. Well, the 800 series exam now completely retired worldwide. It retired in English-speaking countries in June of 2016. But now the only thing you should be studying is the 220-901 and the 220-902. Make sure that you are studying one of those. If your books or study materials, say the 800 series, the 801 and 802, the 701, 702, someone in the chat room or online said, I just found some old books. They were the 600 series books. Can I still use these? No, do not use any older books. Things change so much that even the few changes they do add could be 20 to 25% of the exam, and that's certainly enough for you not to pass your exam. So make sure you have the latest study materials. At this point, the 900 series is the only thing out there. So it's pretty good shape. Now, if you're already A+ certified, there is a renewal process that you could take to renew your certification, because obviously it's only good for 3 years. You have to constantly renew. You can renew with CEUs. You can take a higher level certification. And CompTIA also has a renewal certification you can take. You can find out more about that on CompTIA's website. Also, don't forget, this is relatively new, something I only finished in the last few months, is I have 2 books available if you would like to get more questions. One of the things I like to say is watch the videos, get a good book, and do as many practice questions as you can. But if you go around the internet, you get some books, I found that a lot of the practice questions weren't really that great. So I wrote my own books full of practice questions, combination of some of the older pop quiz questions that you've seen from me through the years, and hundreds of brand new questions are in these books. There's a 220-901 and a 220-902, total of over 1,000 300 A-plus questions. There is no larger repository of A-plus Q&A anywhere. This is a magnificent undertaking that I made a mistake of doing. I'll just write a little book. It'll be this little small thing. No, it's a monster. It is huge. So hopefully you'll like this too. But I kept the price low. So just like my course notes, the books are $10 a piece. The idea is to get you trained, not drain your pocketbook. So if you'd like to know more about that, find out more at professormesser.com/PQC, the Pop Quiz Collection. There's also, if you don't want to pay for questions, there's other questions for free on my website. In fact, I just added new ones now at the beginning of the year. If you go to professormesser.com/popquiz, you'll be able to see the pop quiz questions. And so I will bring up that page on my screen right now so that you folks can see that's not it. That's the chat. Let's minimize the chat so you can actually see the screen. There we go. So right now I have 5 tests for the 901 and 4 tests for the 902. So there are almost 200 questions there and available for you to run through right now. Those questions, by the way, are questions that come from these study groups. So they're not my daily pop quiz questions. They're not in the book. They're brand new. So that's kind of nice, I think, that you'll have the opportunity to see those. So make sure you have a look at the pop quizzes that are online, professormesser.com/popquiz. You can run through those. Hopefully that's be something you enjoy. I'm adding some new ones also running behind there. So I want to be able to give you some more of those along the way. Let's get into what we're going to do today. So I said that we're going to do some Q&A. We absolutely will. We're going to start with this online system I have called Socrative. It's not my system. It's a third-party system, but I love it. So if you're here live, you might want to open up a new window in your browser, or you can download the Socrative student app and go to this room. You'll click on the student login and go to the room named Professor Messer. Make sure you spell it right, PROFESSORMESSER. And you'll be able to see a question that I have up right now on Socrative.com. Here's the question. What's your resolution for 2017? And I'm giving you some multiple choice answers to see what your resolution might be. This is just a sample question we're going to use to make sure you can get into the room, that you can use the application on your mobile device, that you can use it in your browser, that everything's working properly for you. Because on my side, I see that 63 people are already in here, and you've said 21% have said get healthy, 19% get organized, 15% read more, 13% live life to the fullest, spend less, save more. Only 8% said learn a new hobby. Do we have enough hobbies now? Is that what happened? We don't need to know any more hobbies along those lines. So if you can get into Socrative, remember you go to Socrative.com, click the student login, and there's the room name right there, Professor Messer, PROFESSORMESSER, just like the domain name. So you'll be able to figure it out to be able to do this. This is a great service. So all you have to do is stay there on that screen. You don't have to type anything else. You don't have to change anything in your browser. You don't have to change anything in the app. The questions will automatically change. So you'll be able to work through all of those pieces as we go through them. For those of you not familiar with the A-plus exam, there's actually 2 exams, the 901 and the 902. So make sure that you're looking at the very specific topics related to those 2 exams. We'll talk about the exam objectives later on today. The exam is scored sort of oddly by reasons of, I don't know. They've just decided to do it this way, I think on purpose. It is a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90. But you're not going to get more than 90. Most people, I think, do get fewer than 90 questions, but you could get up to 90 questions of both performance-based questions and multiple choice. Performance-based questions are questions like fill in the blank or sort things or perform matching, or they might put you at a command line and ask you to perform a command line function. So make sure that you're very familiar with these topics, because when you go into the exam, you can get a number of different things right in front of you. You have to get a 675 on a scale between 100 and 900 for the 901, and you have to get a 700 for the 902. These are percentages. We think every question is worth a different amount. Just do the best you can. If you get all the questions right, you're going to be fine. In fact, let's do some questions. Let's work on questions. The first question I have for you, you've asked for it, so I brought it to you, a performance-based question. This is not a multiple choice. You will find your Socrative will give you a blank to fill this in. But now you have to perform this performance-based question, which is order these interfaces from lowest throughput to highest. And here are the interfaces: USB 3.0, Gigabit Ethernet, FireWire 800, Thunderbolt 3, and SATA version 3. So for those of you in the chat room who have already said, but I don't have a way to practice the performance-based, oh, wait a second, here's one. We do have a performance-based question to go with. So maybe this is one you can work through. I'm going to show nobody sent any answers in on this one. We're all thinking about what this one could possibly be. What could these be, these interfaces from lowest throughput to highest? See, good. Some of you in the chat room said, I just watched the video on this one. What could it be? What could it be? What could it be? And working with these. This is one of the challenges when dealing with this exam is you don't know how things are going to go when you sit for the exam. In the chat room, someone's even mentioning one of the strategies I recommend, which is you get the performance-based questions first thing on the exam, just like I'm doing today. This is the first question we got. Boom, hits us with this one. We're not even comfortable in our seat yet. The adrenaline's still going. We can't even understand what we're reading. And now we have to step through these very complex or relatively more complex questions than something like a multiple choice. What I recommend is skipping over them. You can mark them, you can flag them, you can come back to them. In the CompTIA exam, you can jump around. Not all industry exams allow you to do this, but CompTIA does. You can move back and forth. You can go to the last question, you can go to the first question, or any question in between and jump back and forth. So I recommend you skip the performance-based questions completely at the very beginning. Go right to the multiple choice, go through all the multiple choice, which I think might help you get into a groove, might help you remember a few things you might have forgotten. And then when you circle back to the performance-based questions, maybe there's more that we can work with on the screens, things that we can remember. Remember, don't answer in the chat room. You want to be able to answer online, Socrative.com. Make sure that you go to the student login and go to room name Professor Messer, and you'll be able to do this. And this is one of the things that also it's important to read the question. This is one that always gets me. I always go through the questions, and then I circle back and go through the questions again. And one of the problems I have is that I'll read the question the second time, completely different question than what I thought it was. I misread it the first time through. So that's a very good point in the chat room. People are saying, make sure that you absolutely go through and look at all of the words that are in these questions. It'll be a little bit more of a challenge. Let's see how we did with this one. I'm going to flip through this list. A lot of you are saying, oh, I'm rusty on speeds. Because this is not a multiple choice, there's no results to show on this view. But I think a lot of you did pretty well with these. I'm seeing a lot of the answers coming through are pretty good. So I'm going to say a majority of you did well with this one. Let's talk about interface speeds, specifically the ones we just listed, which were USB 3.0, Gigabit Ethernet, FireWire 800, Thunderbolt 3, and SATA version 3. So what do you think the lowest speed was? Because we're ordering these again from lowest to highest. Lowest speed, FireWire 800. Runs at 800 megabits per second, or 0.8 gigabits per second. So what would the next highest be then? It would be the 1 gigabit Ethernet, 1 gigabit, which is only 200 more megabits per second. So we're kind of creeping up, starting on the low side, going up higher. Next highest speed is quite a jump, which is USB 3.0, which runs 5 gigabits per second. That's a nice speedy USB at 5 gigabits per second. We've also got the next higher up, SATA version 3.0. That revision is just a little bit faster at 6 gigabits per second. Well, that leaves one more to go, which is Thunderbolt 3, 40 gigabits per second. Now that's some speedy throughput on those. So now we've got at least, here's a list in our head. We're able to take the lowest going all the way up to the highest. This is one of the things I think a lot of people are challenged with on the exam, because one of the things I hate doing is having to remember everything, is having to do this memorization. And a lot of people struggle with the memorization parts of this. So if you're having the same problem, try building a computer. Go to PC Part Picker and build a computer. Look at the specifications. Do I want USB 2 or a 3.0? What are the differences? Maybe get a computer yourself and be able to work with these interfaces to transfer files to see what the speeds are. Look at the throughputs between a SATA revision 2 and a SATA revision 3. So that's one of the good examples, I think, of going through all of the different options when you're working with this stuff in real time, where you're doing some hands-on, where you're really performing some practical analysis of these technologies. You're not just memorizing, here's an interface and here's some speeds. And I think those will help solidify those in most people's brains. If I go through the list that I have on my screen, most everybody started with FireWire. Some of you didn't. Some of you started on the SATA side, and you can see SATA definitely was higher than others. So maybe if you're working through trying to figure out interfaces, or you didn't get these exactly right, now you know a place where you can begin. Because I think this is a perfectly valid and expected performance-based question. It's a perfect kind of thing you should be looking for. So make sure you understand those interface speeds and you're going through them as well. Let's do another question, shall we? This one is not a performance-based question. This one is a multiple choice question. We're shifting gears. That was a 901 question. Let's go to the 902 question. The 902 question is, which of the following would be the best choice for enabling and disabling startup items in Windows 8.1? Well, as you're probably aware, there are many ways to enable and disable startup items in Windows 8.1. So make sure that you know what those different options are, because you may be only asked for one of these. And the options that I have available to you is System Configuration, Windows Services, System Information, Task Manager, and Process Explorer. One of these, notice that there only is one here that is the best choice for enabling and disabling startup items in Windows 8.1. This is one thing that I think they do very well on the CompTIA exam, is asking you questions that are multiple steps. They're not just asking you what a particular thing is or what the acronym and explanation is. They're trying to apply these things back to really solving a problem. So here's your scenario. You've been asked to enable or disable a service in Windows 8.1, and here are the tools available. Which one do you use? There's a good example of being able to do that. So if you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. You should go to Socrative.com, click the student login, go to room name, Professor Messer. We can do that. I usually go about an hour on these questions for people that are just checking in right now, just joining us a little bit late. Welcome. We usually go an hour in the Q&A, and usually I open up the phone lines. You can tell my voice is a little bit challenged today. So we're going to see how long the phone lines will go today. If I make it that long, we'll see. It's a mystery. We don't know. Anything could happen. This might be one of those days where we finish up in 15 minutes and we all go home. We'll have to figure out all the different pieces. By the way, we are looking at the chat room. There's a chat room on the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/live if you're here for the live event. If you're just on any page on my website, there's always a 24/7 chat. So you can do that. The chat that I'm looking at is the live event chat. There's two group chats available. One suddenly appears when there's a live event. So that's what we're doing, is the live event chat. Let's see how we did with this. Which of the following would be the best way to enable and disable startup items? Well, we've got a tie for first. We have a system configuration at 39%. We have a task manager at 38%. A good solid number 2 on the list is Windows Services. And then we've got almost 2%, practically nothing, for System Information and Process Explorer. What can we possibly use for enabling and disabling items like this? Well, very easily, very, very easy to do this. In fact, probably the thing that I use the most to be able to do this is the System Configuration tool. The System Configuration tool has a startup tab and allows you to be able to manage what devices will start on a Windows login. Now, one of the things that you'll find on this is that this is the right answer if I was asking you for Windows 7. So all of you that think you may have gotten it wrong, you actually may have gotten it right, because I specifically asked you about Windows 8.1. It is a trap. And in Windows 8.1, all of that startup functionality moved to the Task Manager. So the task manager is the one. Now suddenly it changed. A lot of people say, well, there's not much difference between Windows 7 and Windows 8. As long as you know Windows 7, you'll do fine on the exam. Not exactly true, because you may be asked something like this that says, I'm in Windows 8.1 and I need to enable and disable startup items. What do I use? Oh, well, for years and years and years, I've always used system configuration, except it's not there anymore. They moved it completely. And it makes sense, really, that they move it completely. I think a lot more people use Task Manager than use System Configuration. Why wouldn't we put the most commonly used things in Task Manager when we're trying to, I don't know, manage tasks? So this might be, this is one of those things that Microsoft, I think, may have done properly, is put this in its right place. So if we look at how we did, well, System Configuration, a lot of you bit on that one, and that was intentional. I will take credit for having you think about that one. But the idea is that I want at least half of you to get these questions right. I want half of you to maybe even try to figure it out. Maybe even think that maybe I need to study up different parts of this. It's actually D, Task Manager. 36% of you got that one absolutely right. So well done with that, getting through the Task Manager pieces and having that work through all of the different parts of Windows. You'll see that in Task Manager, it used to be System Configuration looked like this. And let me now cycle through. And the Task Manager now is right there. There's your System Configuration. Now it says, no, you need to go to Task Manager. And Task Manager looks like that now, which you'd be able to see if my head was not there. There we go. See? So the Task Manager has that Startup tab right inside of it. Pretty nice to have that there as well. Let's do another performance-based question, shall we? This is more of a 901 performance-based question, but it's one that is a fill in the blank. So don't answer in the chat room. You want to fill in the blank and be able to do that. So maybe that's one you can work through and have there. I think that's one that I always like to work through, is try to figure out what are these different interfaces. Now, you want to be very specific with what interface this is. Make sure you put in the exact name of it, if there's a version number, if you know how fast it is. You could even put that in there, a bonus credit, if you know what the throughput happens to be on this interface. I know some of you already answered. That's okay. If you know, you know. So don't worry that you didn't put that in. I think a lot of you know where these are here. In the chat room, they're looking for the video. Where is the live event? It's at professormesser.com/live, of course. Oh, what interface? Let's make this bigger so we can really see that. Maybe you can't see it well. There it is. What interface is that? A lot of you know this one. Some of you are guessing at this one. Some of you are just saying, I have no idea what you're talking about. Good for you. At least you know what you don't know. Now you know you can go back and study some of these interfaces and figure out what all of those types of things are. So maybe you know what it is. If you do know, don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to the Socrative.com. Go to that room. Here we go. Go to Socrative.com, to the room named Professor Messer, and you'll be able to answer the question. I think a lot of you know this one. I think a vast majority of you know this one. There are a few of you that have tried and gotten that one not quite right. It's one you may not have seen before. It's a relatively new interface. We talk about the PC world of things. It's not one you run into very often, is it? We'll probably run into it. I'm wondering if we're going to run into it more or less now. We'll have to see what this turns into when we start working through all of these interfaces. Let's see what this is and being able to do that. Let's change a few things in the chat real quick. Maybe we'll be able to see that. Yeah, I think it might be a little bit less as well. This is a USB connection. This USB connection is, you can see here the different connectors that are available. This is a USB 3.0 connection. So it's not one that you would have seen with USB 2.0. It's not one you would have seen, certainly not with the original USB. It's an all new plug type. It looks very similar. Half of it looks similar to the older USB 2.0 micro B. But in the USB 3.0, they added on this other section on here that you can't see. I don't have my mouse turned on to show you the highlighting right there. Do I have it turned up? There we go. So here's that USB. So there's the part that kind of looks like the old USB 2.0, and now it's got this newer part on the end of it. So if you answered USB 3.0 micro B plug or USB 3.0, I would have accepted that in there as well. I think we're going to see really a lot of is USB-C coming through. No, they've not abandoned that format. It's certainly one that's an absolute standard. It's not been deprecated. It's one that is absolutely one of the latest standards. But you'll be able to work through that as well. This is one that I think does come in handy, is knowing these different interfaces. You might be faced with this. I think a good performance-based question is they give you 5 or 6 interfaces and tell you to fill in the blank, or 5 or 6 interfaces, and you have to match them. So that's one of the things that can really be important when you're sitting down to take your 901 exam. There are so many interfaces on the exam, though. There was somebody on Reddit today that even said, all of these interfaces, how am I supposed to keep track of them? Not just interfaces, but everything else that's there. Look at all of the different things that you have to know for the 901 and 902 exam. There's command line, there's hardware, there's Windows versions, there's mobile devices, there's printers, there's troubleshooting. There's all kinds of different things that you have to know. What I've done is taken all of my videos. I've gone through all of my videos, pulled out every piece of information that I felt was important for you to know, and I put it into a set of course notes. You could, of course, watch all my videos yourself, take your own notes. Some people either don't have time or they'd like a set of notes that is something they can download and keep electronic as a PDF. This is something that when you purchase it, it's available immediately for download, one that becomes very useful to have here as well. The course notes are $10 a piece, one for 901 and $10 for the 902 exam, and they have everything on them. Here's the course notes on my screen right now. The 901s here on the left, there's socket types, all of the different memory information. You've got all of the different things you need to know. There's the interfaces. So you've got all the interfaces that are on there. Very, very colorful, very visual. You're able to break down and really see everything that's going on. So if you're someone who would just like to have all of these notes available, that might be an option for you. And another thing that's nice is every dollar from this goes back to keep the website running. We've got many, many servers, many expenses that it takes to keep all of these things running. And it's your support of the website through purchasing products like this that helps us do that. So I want to thank you for your ongoing support. For those of you that already have the course notes, thank you very much. For those of you that are getting it, thank you for considering that. I think it's one that really goes back and has a direct impact on me being able to continue this crazy experiment of making all of this information absolutely free. And there are more projects underway right now. I can't tell you about them, but they're going to be great. You're going to love it. Couldn't do it without your help. Thank you so much. Find out more about the course notes at professormesser.com/A+CN. A+ course notes, and their course notes, of course, for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Windows 7, and maybe some more that's coming soon. We'll find out. Thanks again. Let's do another question, shall we? Here we go. Let's click the next button on my side so that you don't have to change anything on your side. You can just go to Socrative.com to the room name Professor Messer. If you're there, you'll see this change immediately. And the question is, which of these protocols would be most associated with a print server? A print server. Well, first you have to know what a print server is. Then you have to know how it works. And then you have to know which one of these it might be. And I have a few options for you. Is it SNMP, IPP, DHCP, DNS, IMAP? It's got to be one of those, right? I'm out of numbers. I'm out of letters. I'm out of everything. So now we have to figure out between all of those what it happens to be. What protocols would be most associated with a print server? If you happen to know, don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to Socrative.com. Go to room name Professor Messer. Don't you love that when you see it? I'm looking in the chat room. Someone, JP says, I saw this in a video just yesterday. Don't you love that? You get those questions. You just saw this. Now the question is, do you remember what you saw in the video? That's a little bit more of a challenge, isn't it? Let's see if we can get some hot liquid on the throat here and be able to make it through the next 30 minutes. It's a very good strategy in the chat room. People are saying there's got to be some that you don't know. Calculatus, eliminatus. Be able to get rid of the ones you don't know through this list and be able to work through them. This is one wherever I'm working through them, maybe you happen to know what they are. Working through some of these, or you happen to know what they are not. Like that's definitely not a protocol that would be associated with a print server. Let's take it off the list. Let's see how we did, shall we? Let's click. How do we do? Well, got a lot going on. 49%, that's the one in the lead, said IPP. 23% said SNMP. 16%, 15% said DHCP. 10% said IMAP. And 2% said DNS. But is IPP really the right thing? Well, If you know IPP, you certainly know me, and print servers. Print servers are a bane of the system administrator's existence. They are one of the biggest challenges. I literally 15 minutes prior to this event today ran into a problem with print server in my studio. There's not many things happening here. I have two printers. Wanted to print from one to the other. Wanted to say, no, don't use this printer, use the other one. Couldn't print to it. So I ran into a print server problem. But the problem, I think, on my side was more software related. But you as the system administrator, you have to figure it out. Is it software? Is it the operating system? Is it the printer itself? It's a challenge. The print servers themselves might be software, or they might be a piece of hardware that's embedded in the printer that is running print server software. You may have to be able to plug in a slide in a card like this one that has an Ethernet connection. You plug in the Ethernet connection and you can put the printer anywhere you've got Ethernet. My printer is actually wireless. I can put my printer anywhere I have power. So I don't have to worry about being connected. The print server is in the printer itself. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's bad, but it's up to you to figure it out. There's a lot of different ways that you could print to a printer though. There's of course, there's not just one way to print to a printer. There's a lot of different printing protocols across many different operating systems done many different ways. Some of the most popular are in the Windows world, SMB, which is server message block. And when you get into other printing types or multi-protocol or multi-operating system printers, you may be using other print protocols such as IPP and LPD. The Internet Printing Protocol, very common. The LPD, also very common for the line printer daemon. So this is whenever you start looking at all of the things that it could be, especially when we get there. This is definitely something you need to know, and that's not what you need to see. This is what you need to see right here. So those of you that did answer IPP, yep, IPP is new in the 900 series. IPP, obviously now the 900 series, people say all the time, that's such a simple introductory certification. Why even bother taking it? This is something said, by the way, from people who've never taken this exam, because you have to know Windows, you have to know Mac, you have to know Linux, you have to know how to troubleshoot those operating systems, you have to know the utilities that are required for that. That's just the 902 exam. And then how to handle any situation that you would have associated with this. So of course, some of these now multi-protocol, multi-operating system protocols will certainly show up on this exam. So it's one wherever you get into it. It can be a little bit more of a challenge because now we have to know so much more than just Windows. Makes sense to me. I worked in an organization where half of the devices were Mac OS, half of the devices were Windows. Maybe a little bit of there on there. So that's something that comes in. Yes, this is included on my videos. This is I include every topic from the CompTIA exam objectives in my videos, including, in fact, that was the slide. That's the slide from my video right there. Literally just copied and pasted it. Don't tell anybody that that's how this works. Let's do another question. That was more of a printing server question and handling things that way. Let's do something that's a little bit less of a printing server or is it a printing server question? What is this? It's a display question. Which of these would be common of IPS displays? Which of these? See, now you know. I always try to use the old school references with IPP. Yeah, you know me. Maybe some of you will be able to catch up there, or at least fall back to where I am. Which of these would be common of IPS displays? Well, would it be that they require a cooldown period after use? Would it be that they provide poor color representation? Maybe they're relatively more expensive than TN displays. Perhaps they suffer from poor viewing angles, or they show tails when they are touched. One of these would be very common of IPS displays. It's a little bit of a challenge, isn't it? Because now we have to know what an IPS display is. So, and then on top of that, we have to understand how the IPS display is one that is something we need to know about. So this is a little bit more of a challenge because now we have to know what the advantages, disadvantages, what IPS is. IPS versus what? Is IPS all there is? You have to wonder. So now you have to really be very familiar with these, in this case, display technologies. This is something you're going to run into also with anybody in any organization. Everybody's got a display. Some have better displays, some have different displays. If you're working in an architectural firm, there are huge displays and multiple displays. If you are in a warehouse, maybe it's a very tiny display, something you can be very small and out of the way. You're going to have different requirements depending on what's there. So this is one that you're going to need to know as well. Let's see how we did. Most of you are Googling this one. I can see when the numbers aren't moving up that there's some Googling going on. How'd we do? Well, 46% of you, 45% said they're relatively more expensive than TN displays. And we have 34% said suffers from poor viewing angles. We also have 15%, way down to third, shows tails when touched would be common at IPS displays. Hardly anybody said that they require a cool down after use or that they provide poor color representation. I think you guys did a pretty good job with getting rid of A and getting rid of B. If you've used an IPS display, you know that they don't require a cool down period, and they certainly don't have poor color representation. These days, it's hard to find a monitor that really has poor color representation. It may not be completely accurate on some of these, but they're really good these days. We're not really running into poor displays. Well, let's talk first about TN displays, Twisted Pneumatic, and the technology that they use. Twisted Pneumatic is probably the one you'll find in most places. It's a very common display type, but it has very fast response time. So if you're a gamer, that's a great display for you. Doesn't use a lot of power. But if you move the screen, if you look at it from the side, it looks like a negative. It's got very bad viewing angles. The color shifts completely in the other direction, and everything looks funny that way. So it's only good if you're straight on using those types of displays. The other type of LCD display you'll find is an IPS, an in-plane switching. The type we're talking about right here, IPS in-plane switching, has very good color representation. It doesn't tail when it's touched, but it is more expensive relative to a TN display to create. So it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to buy something. I think the prices, though, are getting much better. It's actually becoming a lot less expensive, certainly still relatively more expensive than the TN. But in our particular case, that is the question. These IPS displays certainly don't require cool down, don't provide poor color representation. These are not the displays that have the poor viewing angles. That's the TN display. It does not show a tail when you touch an IPS display. Very good for mobile devices or touch screens. And that means our only answer that would be correct here is it's relatively more expensive than a TN display, just a little bit these days. Used to be a lot, getting a lot less, but still relative to TN, they are more expensive. So the 48% of you that said the answer C got it right. Well done with that. Now people are answering. You can't answer now. You can't add to it now that I've given you the answer. But that's the one it was, working through those. If you have a laptop or working in an embedded system, it could have either a TN or an IPS display. You'll have to look at the display yourself and see what options are there for you. This exam is huge, both of these exams. That's why there are 2 exams that you have to go through for the A+. They are extensive. They contain information about really almost every aspect of personal computing. Whenever I start looking at all of the things you have to know, one of the things I recommend to people, especially if you're having problems memorizing things, is to get as much hands-on as possible. And one of the ways you can do this is to go through labs. Now, the folks at GTS Learning have created live labs for the 900 series exams. They have both an ebook. I love their ebook, by the way. I used their ebook to make my videos. And then once my videos were done, they embedded my videos inside of their book with QR codes, or if you have the ebook version of it, just click the button. The video is right in the middle of the book, which comes in handy. So some of you might just need a book. You don't need the labs. You got your own lab. You're familiar with it. Maybe the book is all you need. You can find out about the book that's there with the on the GTS Learning website. But they also, if you get the live labs, they include the book as well. So that might be something to consider when you're stepping through all the different things you could do, is go through all the live labs and walk through all of the different options that are available for the live labs. You can step through all of them and work with them. I like to work with all of the labs that they have. I use them in some of the videos that I do. They become handy in being able to demonstrate different capabilities, or maybe you just need a refresher on how some of these things work. This is really one of the greatest things I found when I need a very quick hit of knowledge. I can go online, look at the labs that they have here, go to the next option they have. This is the System Management Utilities lab. I've scrunched everything onto one screen, but you can pop them out and put them on other screens and move them around if you'd like to, but it all runs in a browser. You don't need any extra software. You don't need any extra tools. There's nothing else you need to load onto your system. You don't have to install anything. If you have a modern browser, and I mean one in the last couple of years, it'll be able to run this type of system where you're simply accessing a fully running virtual machine over the network through this very simple front end through this remote desktop. Really, it's effectively remote desktop in your browser and all set to go. I've just powered on some of these so that I could start working with them. And I click on this server here, and now I've got a Windows server I can work with. And it's a full-blown server. You're really running through it. Look how fast it is to use this because it's remote desktop. I don't have to load anything. I don't have to have anything there. I can run through all of the different settings and look through all of them right there on the screen and see how all of them work. I've got multiple machines that I would use for this lab, and you just scroll back and forth. The others are booting up right now. We can start the other one. Let's have a look at this Windows 7 device. And I can just move back and forth through all of these. They're ready to go. Makes it very simple. If you're ever trying to get through and use some of these labs, great to have there. And the folks at GTS Learning make it very easy and very cost effective to either get an ebook or use the labs for something that you might want to have available for you to use. So you can check those out at professormesser.com/live labs. Maybe that's something you can use for all of the lab testing and hands-on that you're working with. And I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for their support of what we do here as well. Next question on our list is, which of these security technologies can protect data transmitted from a public network? Which of these? Oh, it's a security question. Now we have to know security questions and being able to work through there. The options I have available for you are multi-factor authentication, access control lists, virtual private networking, data loss prevention, and host-based firewall. One of these would be a security technology that can protect data transmitted from a public network. It might be very easy for you to be able to do that. Maybe that is something you can work through whenever you're trying to figure out the details. I think a lot of you might even know this one and being able to work through all of the different pieces of it. Maybe you do. So you'll be able to work through all of those. Which of these security technologies, if you do know, don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to Socrative.com to the student login and be able to go to room name Professor Messer. Something you work through as well. It becomes handy to have that there. Whenever you're working with the security, it's almost more important to know the networking side and being able to work through here. But obviously, there's a big component of security in the 902 exam. And this is a question that comes directly from the exam objectives and the things that you need to know about security and the way they operate, especially if you're running a server, you're running a workstation, you need to protect your data, you need to know how to do it. So I'm going to take a sneak peek at how we're doing. And let's see how we did. A lot of you have already answered this one, so we'll go straight to the answers. And here we go. 62% said C, virtual private networking, but 23%, almost a quarter of you, said host-based firewall. And then we have single digits for everything else: multi-factor authentication, access control lists, and data loss prevention. Obviously, all of these are important security technologies. You should be using all of these security technologies, every single one of them. You want to layer these security technologies and being able to use them. But of course, my question was asking about a very specific aspect of security that talked about protecting data. In fact, I could have just ended it right there, but I said protect data transmitted from a public network. This could, of course, protect data transmitted from a private network as well. I was trying to lead you down a path with this one. I don't want to make the questions too obscure and being able to work through them. In this case, we're talking specifically about a virtual private network, being able to encrypt all of the data between two sites. It's very useful if you're in a coffee shop, you're at a conference, you're on a public, open, wireless network, and you want to be sure everything you send to and from that network is unreadable by anybody else. And the way you do that is to create an encrypted tunnel between your device and some other endpoint that is protected out there on the other end of the communication. This is something that requires not just probably software running on your device, but in most cases, it's using a concentrator that is the end point. In fact, usually there are many people in the field all communicating back to this central concentrator. Usually that concentrator is a hardware device, but you can, of course, run concentrations of VPN software tunneling endpoints on software as well. You could set up your own server, set it up as a VPN endpoint, and now you're able to connect to there and be able to use them. A lot of people use different options with these, but usually there's software that's either built into the operating system or software that you would install yourself into that operating system. You can run a VPN from a mobile device. You can run it from your iPad. You can run it from your Android device. You can run it from Windows, from macOS, from Linux. Every operating system in the world, it seems, has some VPN software that you can use. You can, of course, check into all of those and be able to work through what all of those different options might be. The concept behind using a VPN becomes pretty important. So you have to know everything, how to protect that data wherever you might be. It's a good idea just to do this, even if you aren't part of a larger organization, just to protect your information. The virtual private networking C is the correct answer there. Would not be a host-based firewall. A host-based firewall will, of course, allow you to either allow or drop traffic that's coming into your particular device. But it's not protecting any part of that traffic. It's not encrypting any part of that traffic. And that, of course, was the important part for us, is we want to encrypt and protect that data. That was your special code word here, was protect that data, so that you go, oh, protect, I need to encrypt. I need to make sure nobody else can see that data. So that becomes very useful to have there. Virtual private networking, 58% of you that answered C got that one absolutely right. What VPN would I recommend? I recommend any one that you can use. There's no specific VPN service, third-party VPN service. Most of the people, whenever you work in a larger organization, they already have VPN hardware and software that they've already purchased. They already have an infrastructure for virtual private networking. So it becomes useful to have that available. You don't have to use a third party. You are the virtual private networking service. And I don't care which one you use. Just use any VPN service that will protect your information and provide you with the throughput and accessibility that you need. Let's do another question. I've got one here. Now we've got to figure out Windows and being able to get that there. The question is, which of these would be the best way to determine a remote Windows device name when you only have the IP address? Boy, this comes in handy. Knowing how to do this will solve a lot of problems for you. Because when you are troubleshooting something, you've performed a packet capture, you're looking at an event log, and it shows you an IP address. But on your network, you have a lot of different Windows devices. You want to know the name associated with that IP address. How can I get the name of that Windows device when all I have is the IP address? Well, you would use one of these tools. You would use netstat, nslookup, traceroute, ipconfig, or nbtstat. One of these will give me the remote Windows device name when I only have the IP address. Now, technically here, there's actually two answers. So this is one where you probably could win either way. But there's one I'm looking for, but there's another one that actually could be correct as well. But as far as the CompTIA exam is concerned, there's probably a best answer here. And then there's a probably just as best answer. I'm not even going to say it's a worst answer. I think it's the best one. I think it's a pretty good one. And being able to work through all those pieces. So that's whenever I start knowing these tools and being able to work with them, talking about doing hands-on, you would have needed to go through and do some hands-on with these utilities to be able to know how this works. So that's one of those. Yeah, the CompTIA exam could possibly ask you for multiple answers. Absolutely. So you could get a question that says, which of these would allow you to do this? Pick two. And it would, instead of being a radio button, it would be a checkbox. And it actually checks and makes sure, oh, you didn't answer two of these. You need to answer two. It will tell you. If you answer more than two, it says, no, you have to answer two of those. So it's nice that it tells you that you haven't answered it properly, but it gives you a visual cue on the screen. You'll notice the radio button isn't there anymore. It's an actual checkbox. And very easy to go through those pieces. So let's see how we did with this answer. How do we do? Well, 57% said NSLOOKUP. But no, there's no closer one than that. 12% said ipconfig, 14% said mbtstat, 9% said netstat, and 8% said traceroute. So really the vast majority, I wouldn't say vast majority, but certainly the majority, over 50% said NSLOOKUP. NSLOOKUP, I think, is an absolutely correct answer here because the Windows name service these days does register it to a name services, but this is not the best answer. The question asks, what's the best way to determine a remote Windows device name? It could be that the remote Windows device isn't registering it in the DNS. One of the nice things about Windows is it will register a name in the DNS when it comes on the network, but it doesn't have to. So technically, I would say I would give you credit for B, but NSLOOKUP actually not the best answer here. The best answer here is the one that talks directly to this device using MBTstat. MBTstat is the Windows protocol running NetBIOS over TCP/IP that will talk to that IP address and say, so tell me about yourself. Tell me what your name is. You could have, in fact, I've got an option here. I can list all the local names, or I could say, tell me your name with the dash capital A, hyphen capital A, and then the IP address. We'll go out to that IP address and say, all right, who are you? Give me a name of services that are running on that device. You can also reverse that. Use a lowercase a and list just the remote NetBIOS name. If you know the name is server 1, it will give you the IP address. So you can do both of those. Now, if you are looking just for the name, the IP address, the IP name, the TCP IP name associated with an IP address in your name server, well, then you might have gotten the right answer had you chosen NSLOOKUP. But the question here talks specifically about a remote Windows device name. So I'm already looking for a Windows name, the one that you would put into the control panel system, that name in there. And if you only have the IP address, the best way to do that, the best way to do that is MBTstat. By the way, this is very common to see on the exam where they ask you for the best answer, and some of the answers could still be correct. All 5 of these could be a correct answer. They could answer the question, except for that very special word in there, the best way. Because as we know in Windows, there's many different ways to perform a function, which is really the best way. And the best way is almost always one that is the quickest, the easiest, the most direct way to do it. So it becomes handy to have that there. And again, not everybody uses domains to be able, the domain name server, so you can't always rely on that. But if you're running Windows, you're absolutely running the Windows services there to be able to answer these questions. So our answer here is E, MBTstat. 16% of you answered that one correctly. In fact, that is a very good word to use for our monthly code word, NBTstat. If you are watching this for continuing education credit, you can go to either the top or the bottom of the ProfessorMesser.com website. There is a link there that says Contact Us. Click that link, and it will bring you to a form where you can provide your name, your email address. Make sure that you say this is the January 2017 A+ study group, and that our super secret special awesome code word of the month is NBTstat. I go through these. I read them myself. I respond to these myself. I send you back an email. If you did everything properly, if you did all of those things correctly, I send you back a digitally signed email that certifies that you were here for the hour. That is your certificate that allows you to send that along to whoever is collecting these CEUs. Most people, I think, use this for CompTIA, but a lot of people use these for other CEUs as well. That'd be very useful to have that there. Yeah, you want to hash the keyword before you send it to me? You could do that as long as you tell me the hash type, and then I can do a hash myself and see if our hashes match. That gets a little too geeky, doesn't it? But I'll tolerate that. If you wanted to PGP encrypt it to me, I will decrypt it. You have to know my public key. But if you have PGP or GPG, you can find my public key. It's out there. Be able to work through that. That's something you can try just on your spare time. Those of you doing Security Plus, that's what you can try. For A+, don't worry. Just send me the note, fill out the form, put the details in there, and you'll be fine. So in this case, the best way to get that is indeed ENBT stat and being able to work with it. I think we have time for another question, don't we? Let's do this. Here's the next question. When you start Windows, troubleshooting question. When you start Windows, you get a black screen with no login dialog box. Which of the following, here's these tough ones. Which of the following should be your first troubleshooting step? So that's the one that becomes a little bit more of a challenge. Now we have to know the first. There's a lot of things we can do, but this is also very common on the CompTIA exams is they ask you what the first thing you're going to do is. Find out what the first thing you would do. What's the first step? And they will give you a list of things. Is your first thing going to be to start in VGA mode? Is it going to be to update the system BIOS? Will it be to reseat the video adapter card? Would it be to change the default startup device? Or would it be to run hardware diagnostics? One of those is really here. It should jump out at you as what the best first troubleshooting step should be. If you think you know, you can, of course, go to Socrative.com, to the student login, to the room name Professor Messer, and you can answer the question. This is one, you'll get some troubleshooting questions on your exam. A lot of this, some people say 100% of your exam is going to be troubleshooting. Well, it won't be, but it will sure seem like that when you're done. There's so much from a troubleshooting perspective you need to know. It's a big section of being able to do that and have it there. So that's one where whenever you start working through it, I think that becomes a little bit more of a challenge to have that there. Have it all available. Make sure you know what the first answer is going to be, what the first thing you should do. A lot of these answers that are here are definitely not the first thing you should do. Some could be the first thing you should do, but only if you've been through a troubleshooting process with this, would you know what's the fastest thing you can try, what's the most common issue you'll run into, and that's where you can go with that. I think that's one that makes sense if you're starting to look through there. I'm going to click how do we do here. Oh, some of you are trying to figure it out. Could be a layer 8 problem. Some folks in the chat room making a comment. Could be OSI layer 8 as our issue. Could be that problem between the ears that you might run into. So let's see how we did with getting a black screen with no login dialog box. I'd say it's a tie for first. Some of you have said start in VGA mode, but almost as many have said reseat the video adapter card. 16% dropped well off after that, said run hardware diagnostics. 9% changed the default startup device, and only 1% said update the system BIOS. So that's one whenever you start getting into this and working through those. What should we do? I think we are sort of torn over what to do, whether we start in VGA mode or whether we reseat the video adapter card. Whenever you get this problem, everything's been working fine. It's not like we just built this computer. This is something that's been there forever. You turn it on and you don't get a desktop. You don't get a login dialog box. You don't get anything. On my particular question, it was there's a black screen. So it wasn't even like we were seeing anything on the screen. We were just completely black. So there's some type of issue relating to how the information is displayed to us. Now, some of you said reset the video adapter card, but nothing in the question said anything that this was. First, it didn't say there was a separate video adapter card. Fewer and fewer machines these days have a separate video adapter card. And it said nothing in there that this was a new machine. It was moved. There was an earthquake. I don't know. Nothing in there. So what do? Do you simply restart the computer into VGA mode, or do you get a screwdriver? Do you take off the monitor? Do you unplug everything from the back? Do you power down? Do you unscrew the cover? Do you take the cover off? Do you unscrew the screws associated with the video card? Do you pop out the video card? Do you put the video card back in, put the screw back in, put the cover back on, connect all of the different interfaces to the back, power it on, and then see if that worked? One of those is an easier thing. That's what I'm saying. One of those is an easier way to go. So your first step really should be just reboot the machine, hit the F8 as it's starting up and start in VGA mode. VGA mode is a very common generic display type that will work on any monitor that you connect to your computer. Every monitor out there is going to run in VGA mode. It's not something you would run. It's 640 by 480 resolution. It's a very small resolution, but it's so generic that it works on everything. So if you're worried that maybe your monitor can't handle the resolution when this thing is starting up, that's one of the first things you can do. because you know that's at least the most generic signal you could send out to a display device. Now, if you're still having problems after that, then you can do other things. You can replace the monitor. You could try running System File Checker to see if maybe something got corrupted in the operating system. You can even update drivers if you think that's the problem that it happens to be. Maybe you got another monitor working, so now you need to update the driver so it will work with this monitor. And of course, you have the option, if this really is an issue associated with your operating system, you could recover. Maybe you installed some new drivers, you installed something, and it caused a problem. So there's different things you can do, but really in my question, I was asking you for the first thing you should do. And the first thing you should do is absolutely start in VGA mode. That is the correct answer. 39% of you did get that one absolutely right. Well, where are all these questions coming from? Where's all this stuff that I'm putting into these questions? They're coming word for word, the same place that all of my videos come from the official CompTIA A+ exam objectives. If you do not have the A+ exam objectives, then you are well behind the curve. This is the first thing you should do when you start studying for any of the CompTIA exams, because everything is in these exam objectives. Anything you would need to know about the A+ exam is in there. People will often ask me, what do I really need to know to pass the exam? Well, you need to know exactly what's in these exam objectives, because they give you everything. They tell you about the exam at the top. We're going to skip ahead. Here's the first section, 1.1. Give it a scenario, configure settings, and use BIOS/UEFI tools on a PC. I need to know how to perform firmware upgrades and flash the BIOS. I need to understand BIOS component information such as RAM, hard drive, optical drive, and CPU. I need to perform BIOS configurations, understand the boot sequence, enabling and disabling devices. You get the idea. It's extensive to be able to use this. And there's pages of this. I'm just going to scroll a little bit. Pages and pages and pages. You will take other certification exams in your career from other manufacturers. Nobody's going to give you this level of detail. Enjoy this while you can. Most other manufacturers will give you a high-level view. They'll give you the first sentence, and that's it. It's up to you to figure out the best. That's why I always tell people, use this as a checklist. If you can go through and check off, I know that one, I know that one, I know that one, and you check everything in this, you're going to pass your exam no problem. Go out to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives to find these. You can also go to professormesser.com/objectives. I put a link there as well to be able to do that. It will take you directly to the page where you can fill out the form and download these objectives. Make sure you do that. When people say, I've got a week left, what do I do? Go to the objectives, use it as a checklist. I just started on my A+. What do I do to get started? Download the objectives. My answer for everything, I guess, is download the objectives. Make sure you have these objectives and that they are available and you can use those. Well, we've come to the end of an hour of questions and answers, but I do one of these every month. And of course, you can go to my website and watch all of the replays from all of the study groups that I've ever done. And some of them are pretty good. You might want to go through some of those. If you want to join us live, and this is sometime before February the 1st of 2017, you can check us out on professormesser.com/calendar and register for 2017 and being able to do that. Yeah, the copyright on this is 2016 because I finished this presentation in 2016. So that's when this presentation was copyrighted. But we're now in 2017, and February the 1st, 2017 is the next study group, being able to work with us. Yeah, I actually did this I did the questions well before the new year. I knew how that would go. I knew exactly how that would go down. So that's one of the things I need to watch for. And of course, you can go to professormesser.com/calendar. If this is after February and you want to find out when the next event is, we'll have it there as well. But of course, you can also follow us throughout the month. professormesser.com/Twitter/YouTube. Don't forget about the course notes at professormesser.com/A+CN, APLUSCN for the course notes, or my pop quiz collection, professormesser.com/PQC, pop quiz collection. Again, my thanks to GTS Learning, the special pricing they have available that you only get if you follow this link at professormesser.com/livelabs. Of course, follow us for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus study groups every month. I'll be here again next week at this time for Network Plus. A week from then is Security Plus, and you can find out when all of these are to be able to know when the next event will be on professormesser.com/calendar. Well, that brings us to the end of another hour. Can't believe they went so quick. My voice can believe that it went this quick. However, I want to thank you for joining us, though. I hope to see you next month. And hopefully you'll have a very happy new year. I look forward to another great year of A+ study groups and all of the other live events that we do here. If you're watching this live, stick around for the after show. I'll open up the phone lines. If you have to go, I can understand that as well. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the study group. All right, let's turn that back on. Let's see how long we can last with phone lines today, shall we? I think I can figure out how long this is going to be. It's not going to be as long as normal. I can tell that already. Let's start a show. Let's start the show. For those in the chat room wondering about VGA, there is a VGA port. That is a standard, but there's a VGA resolution. The same name comes from the ports, comes from that original interface that we used for that resolution. That's why we named it the VGA interface, because it used that resolution initially. It uses many other resolutions from that interface now, of course. But that is a good example of something you can do that's very generic. Let's call into the call-in studio, and I'll get these going. There's the call-in studio line. What do I type in? Yeah, do I plug in? I do this. I type that in. It says,
enter your 6-digit PIN number.
And then I state how that's redundant. And then I do this. Welcome. So if you'd like to call in directly to the studio here, you can call in toll free in the United States at 855-785-7545. Or if you are on Skype, it's also free. It's Skype free, no Skype minutes at +1 855-785-RJ45. That's another nice thing there. Being able to work through all of those things. And we've got some phone calls already. So folks are ready to jump in there. And I think I can probably take the first one from the 845 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Hello, caller. He's listening to the stream. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello?
What's your name?
Hi, how you doing? Franco.
Hey, Franco. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I just wanted to say thank you for helping me with everything for the A+.
Very welcome, sir.
And, yeah, I passed my A+ using your guides and your videos and everything.
Nice job. Congratulations.
And I also had a question for you.
Okay.
You say you play WoW.
Yep.
Besides vanilla, obviously, because you played since vanilla. What's your favorite expansion?
Well, it's for those of you that were in the pre-show, that's probably the only thing I have time for these days. Is I get a couple hours at night for those not familiar with the genre of multiplayer, massively multiplayer online games. The World of Warcraft, probably one of the most popular out there, is one I like to use. And I have been playing since back in the original release of World of Warcraft. I like the latest expansion. I like Legion. I think it was probably, it's probably one of the better ones. But having gone back to the vanilla days, when you're first getting into something, there's a very nostalgic part of it. I sort of miss some of the early days of they were a little rough around the edges and they were a little bit more of a challenge. And we could probably spend hours talking about people that are running their private servers, and is that legitimate and something they should be doing, or do we go with the newer Legion? But I think they did a pretty good job in Legion. They made it simpler to use, to run. There's more things to do. For someone like me who doesn't have a lot of time, I'm the person that a lot of people who spend a lot of time playing the game don't like. I don't call myself a casual user, but I just don't have a lot of time. I want to get in, I want to do a thing, and then I got to hop out and go on with what I'm doing. And Legion's probably the one that's allowed me to do that the most on here. So that's, if I had to choose an expansion, I'd probably choose that one.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate you and your time.
Absolutely. And if I guess I've got somebody wanted to follow. I think I'm on Earthen Ring currently, is in a horde. I have a horde druid that I'm currently working on. So if someone wants to join me, they can send me a message. I'll be glad to to add them to my friends list. So thanks for calling.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
See ya. There's you got to do something. I spend all day in the box. I'm all day in the studio. When we're not streaming live, this is where I sit. So I don't leave this chair. And I'm working on content. I'm constantly creating content, constantly building, constantly writing, constantly creating something. So from the very first thing in the morning until dinner, this is where I sit. So afterwards, I don't want to work on no more books, no more presentations, no more things that I'm working on. Let's maybe do something else. And that's my outlet currently is those pieces. Back to the calls to the 404 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Caller.
Hey, hi, this is David, and thank you for your sacrifice weekly and monthly for all you do.
Not a sacrifice from my perspective. Thanks, David.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to ask about plans for CISSP study. If you have any plans for that.
That is a busy market. CISSP, for those of you not in the security world, it's sort of the gold standard in security. I don't know, certifications. You want to look at it that way. I was trying to pull up a list I had a number of people that had the CISSP, or their requirements are extensive. You have to already be in the industry. Someone has to be able to vouch for you for the CISSP exam. It's from an organization called ISC Squared. And if you're getting a security or an IT security role, it's one of the certifications that probably is the most recognizable. But there are other really good security certifications in the industry. But for those that are not related to a vendor, it's not a Checkpoint, Palo Alto Networks, Cisco security certification. It's one that's more generic. This is one that a lot of people really, really like. CISSP, the exam is 6 hours long. So this is not one where you're sort of walking in casually and taking the exam and then leaving. It's extensive, and that's why I think it's so well regarded in the security world. But security certifications is a very busy market. Looking at it from a business perspective, there are a lot of people out there that are vying for security certifications. They're trying to get you to take their security certifications. SANS has an extensive set of classes and tests that you could take. ISC Squared, you've got others that, like CompTIA, for example. They certainly have the Security Plus exam, which is well regarded in the industry and very popular. But they of course have the CISSP exam that they introduced a number of years ago. And now, of course, they're introducing another security exam that kind of sits between the Security Plus and the CISSP. So now they've really got 3 levels of security exams that they're going to be offering. So when it comes back to me, the question you had, of course, was, how about some CISSP content? How about a live study group? How about something like that? I don't currently have any plans for a CISSP related study group. I think Security Plus is probably where I'm going to end, but probably just because there is a very niche market for CISSP, and it is a type of certification market that is very segmented. So I tend to do more generic, I don't want to say generic, but CompTIA tends to be very broad in its topics, and I tend to get people that are studying for Security Plus. That's probably a much larger population than people studying for CISSP, because I think at that point we all segment off. If you have Checkpoint firewalls, a lot of people go get Checkpoint certifications. If you have Cisco technologies for security, people tend to go get Cisco certifications, and the whole market kind of fragments up from there. So it's a tough market to try to cater to try to create products for, because you're creating products for this very narrow bandwidth of people. So currently, I don't have any direct plans for CISSP, but if the market suddenly explodes and the market is nothing but CISSP and everybody wants their CISSP, I absolutely move where the market moves. And so you never know, maybe not today, but perhaps in the future.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I appreciate your call and thanks for your support.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
There's sort of a challenge. I have to figure out because I'm a guy, one guy in a room. So I've got one other employee that handles more of my marketing, more of posting things. All those questions that are posted to my online pop quiz. She's the one that posts them. She creates content for me. She does now even more of my website. So I've got one other person working with me and doing this. But the content creation is all me. So I have to create this. I have this very specific, if you want to talk inside baseball, I have a very specific set of criteria that I go through to determine what I'm going to do next. And I try to hit things that people need, but there's enough people that need it that I can continue to build my business on it, because ultimately this is a company that needs to be profitable or else the lights turn off. So the children, they want to go to school. They need clothes. They keep talking about food that they want to eat. So I want to be able to provide that to them. So I can't choose anything that's so niche. I have a lot of things I'd love to do. I have a big list of things that I'd love to do. And I would love to do this. I'd love to spend all week working on that. But then I look at what would the return on that investment be, and it's a negative. Like, okay, I'd lose money if I did that. But that would be great. I'd love to, when I got on at night and I'd love to stream the games I'm working on. There's a commitment you go through there of streaming. And do you even want to get into that world of streaming of games? That's a completely different segment of people that want, and they have particular needs and requirements. I'm not going to do something unless I can do it well. I'm not going to create training content unless it's something that's going to be the highest quality I could possibly create. And I want to create content that's better than anything else that's out there. So that's another balancing act that I do with those. I'm being able to work through it. So that's kind of where my head is when it comes to things. Over the summer, I worked on creating those A+ books because there were a lot of people that said, I can't find good quality curated A+ questions and answers. I'll write some. And I wrote 1,000, more than 1,000, almost 2,000. So here's some that we can use. And now I'm working on something else and going through that. So in the question, people were asking, MBT stat -A is the remote device responding with a name. I guess if things were firewalled, it would not respond. Traceroute and NSLOOKUP do not query a remote device and return its name. It does not return a Windows name. It returns a TCP/IP name. The question specifically was asking about a Windows name of a device. And Traceroute and NSLOOKUP do not return. First, they don't query a device directly. They are simply performing a DNS lookup of what it thinks the name of that device happens to be. And the DNS could be anything. When you're in a Windows world, though, the way Windows works these days is when Windows device comes onto the network, it registers itself with the local DNS server. And if you're on a domain, this is the way it works. And then when you can query that DNS server directly to know who's registered on the network. Ideally, that's the case. But not all devices are part of a domain. They're not all going to register to a DNS. And who's to say that your NSLOOKUP and your traceroute are querying that particular DNS? You would have to query that DNS to be able to pull the name out. So the question I had asked for the best answer. The best answer was MBT stat. So that was the thought process around that question. And again, I told you could ask for, I would accept NSLOOKUP in certain situations. It's not the best answer though. And the question asked for the best answer for those. Do I remember what the general exam was called before CompTIA exam started in the early 2000s? Well, before 2000, it was the A+ exam. It was back to I think the first one was a 300 series exam. Maybe there was one before that, but I think it went from the 300 series exam to the 600 to the 700, 800, and 900. But I think it's all been the A+ the whole time. I don't think that's changed. Back to the 404 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, my name is Juan, and I'm calling from Connecticut.
Welcome.
And I was calling to find out. Thank you. And first of all, before I even get started, I want to just thank you so much for providing this free content for people like myself who can study for the A+ certification. And thanks to you and some other material, I was able to pass the 901 and the 902.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
So, thank you so much for that. But my question is, I'm having a hard time breaking in and on an entry level with this certification. I have customer service experience, and I figured that combined with the certification would help me.
Sure.
But I'm not having a lot of luck right now, and I was wondering if you can give me any advice on job boards or any places I can look, or just ways I can improve, like put together maybe a portfolio showing that I'm competent. Just any advice just on how to maximize this certification.
One of the challenges I had when I first got my first technical job right out of college was working for a computer company in South Miami. And when I say computer company, I mean a storefront that sold PCs. It happened to be with someone, they had the contract for all of what that time was Dade County. Now it's Miami-Dade County. But the entire county, which is the most populous county in Florida, they had the county contract for selling PCs. So I was their technician that would go repair any problems with the PCs. I would deliver printer cables. I would fix or swap out warranty equipment. I was all over the place. And that job was difficult to get because I was moving from North Florida to South Florida. Nobody knew me. In a way, I was really lucky to get that job because nobody at that location, nobody I worked with had ever heard of me before or know who I was. But it was an entry-level position. They were willing to accept the risk, and I would like to hope that it worked out okay. But from that job, I would meet all of these people because not only did we work with the government facilities, there were a number of other large corporations in town that we would sell to, and I would meet all of the people there. And the people I was working with are usually the help desk because I was there to fix something. So I'd go in, oh, you called me, you had a problem? Yes, let me take you over to this desk. Here's the problem we're having. I would correct it and go on the way. But the point is I was meeting all of these people, and I think it's an aspect of technology that we don't think about. Every job that I had since then, I went from that job in South Miami to working for one of those customers that I knew the folks that were there, and they knew me, and they knew that they at least knew I had a certain level of competence. They're like, we know him, we can hire him. And every job I had from that point throughout my career was because I knew someone else at the next place. And it's not like I had to know these people at an intimate level. I wasn't hanging out at their house. I wasn't going to, their family events, but we had a relationship. We had a business relationship. In some cases, we also had personal relationships. We would go out, or we'd go to get a drink, or we'd go after work and do something, and we would know what was going on in our lives. But I think about that. I went from there to a value-added reseller. I knew people there. I went from there to work for a manufacturer. I knew people there that I knew when I was at the value-added reseller. I went from the manufacturer to work for another company that I knew. Every step along the way, I knew someone that was there. I'm really just kind of piecing this together in my head right now. Just my first job was the challenge. What could I have done to make that first job easier, which ultimately is the question you're asking. I should have known people at the first job. How can I do that? These days, it's so much easier. And one of the things I often recommend to people is become active in your local technology user groups. Every place in the country, in the world, has a certain set of technology user groups. They may not be the core technology you're working with at the moment. That's not necessarily the most important thing. But a lot of places have Microsoft user groups. They have Apple user groups. They have VMware user groups. There are Cisco user groups. There are all kinds of user groups out there. Some are just generic technology associations that you can be a part of that meet every month. There's a location, there's a guest speaker, there's time to have some pizza, and time to meet people. The best thing you can do for your career is to build those relationships. Go to some of those user groups. Go to the meetup.com and see if anybody are in your area. Search for Cisco user group, Microsoft user group, VMware user group, or whatever it happens to be in your area. Find one that's close by and go visit that user group. Meet the people that are there. And you can even meet people and ask them, what do you guys look for when you're hiring? Let me know about if anything comes up. Here's my card. Have a card with you. If anything comes up, let me know, because that's usually what we do at these events. We swap cards. So make sure you take some cards with you. That's probably the most important thing when you go to the user group. Yep, here's who I am. Whether you're an independent person, whether you're already working for somebody, have your cards available and collect cards from other people as well. And don't bug people in the user group. Don't send them back email after email. Hey, I met you. Is anything yet? How about now? Are you hiring? But know the people, because when it comes time that a position opens and you walk in the door and you see them, oh, hey, how you doing? Good to see you last month. They're going to be the next meeting. All right, see you there. And that's the way you can take the technical things that you're learning, the formal education that you've spent time getting a degree or learning about, and even some of the things from practical experience, combine all of those together and then put a face on it, which is your face. And it's not going to do you any good unless other people see that face. So that's something that I think those are fun events to go to. You can learn something new every time, and you can meet some great people. Don't miss that opportunity because it will help you in the future. I guarantee it.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like I got a lot of networking to do.
It's more than just IP networking, isn't it? It's person networking, and you absolutely should. Don't
Right.
mistake. Don't forget about that part too.
Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks for calling. It's one of the best things you can really do. I think about that. I got that job in South Miami. I don't know how I got it, but I got it. Went from there to a life insurance company, from there to a VAR. From the VAR, I went to work for a manufacturer the VAR represented. From there, went to a call center company that I knew from back in the life insurance company days. From there, went back to the manufacturer. I was a boomerang, went back to the manufacturer. From there, went to a completely different company, but a person who was starting work there I had worked with at the manufacturer years before. So this is the only job since South Miami where I've worked for somebody. Well, I sort of know the person I work for now because I did marry her. So technically I work for her. So I'm really the president. She's the vice president, but I know who I work for. I'm no dummy. I know exactly how that works in that perspective. Do I have plans for, no, well, people in the chat room are saying, what about more Microsoft training classes? The Microsoft is another challenge. I do have a Microsoft 7 course. You've probably seen the 7680. But of course, Windows 7 has been improved on. Now is Windows 8, Windows 8.1, now Windows 10. And each one of those has their own segmentation. They suffer from the same problem I was mentioning earlier, is that there's tons of segmentation on Microsoft. I downloaded a list of all the exams that they offer, and I think it was 300. Some of the exams are just for vendors of Microsoft. Us out here in the civilian world, we don't really see those exams, but it just speaks to how many hundreds of exams Microsoft offers. So it's a huge segmented work. I could spend 3 months, 4 months working on a course for them, producing it and putting it online and get this many people watching it. So you really have to create tens of courses on Microsoft. And I just don't have the ability to do that. I'm in one of those weird places. As someone who's running a company, I get to make these decisions. Do I hire a bunch of people and put the capital behind creating tens of Microsoft courses and put those out there and see how that revenue stream goes? Or do I keep it very focused with what I'm doing? And right now we're keeping it focused. I'm not planning to build this out to be this enormous behemoth that I no longer have any control over the content. I prefer something very focused. Right now that model's working. I'm sticking with it. Plans for Cisco, like CCNA, I've said in the past, I'd love to do Cisco. It's all about how much time I have. Cisco is definitely on my list. I would love to be able to produce some more Cisco content. I say more, but some Cisco content. Some of the Network Plus has a little bit of Cisco flavor in there. Some of Security Plus has a little bit of Cisco, but not much. Some focus on Cisco. I don't stream on Twitch. I don't stream at Hitbox. I don't stream my gaming at all. And I don't stream these events. Obviously can't stream them on Twitch. Twitch is for gaming only. And Hitbox. Nothing else. I'm usually just streaming here locally. I'm using YouTube Live as the streaming platform for what we're doing, which has been working pretty well. They have improved it dramatically over what it was originally. So I think we'll stick on YouTube Live for now. It seems to work, which is one of the nice things is as soon as I turn this off, the replay's immediately available. I love that. It's very useful. Let's back to the phone. 612 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, my name's Logan.
Hey, Logan. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks for everything you do here. Just wanted to, I was calling in actually kind of related to the last caller, and kind of had something to mention for him too. I really didn't have any experience in IT, and I kind of have a family member that is a security engineer.
Nice.
And he kind of is mentoring me a little bit here. So he went to school for IT, but I didn't. And he suggested that I get a help desk position.
Yeah. It's a good place to start.
So I was able to get into a IT help desk position, and I think that the last caller should maybe look for something along those lines too, because that's what my mentor kind of mentioned. Opens a lot of doors.
It opens a lot of doors. You're absolutely correct.
Right.
My first big job, my first corporate job, my second job out of college was at that life insurance company, and it was a help desk position. I saw somebody talking about this on Reddit this past week. Somebody had put a message out there that says a lot of people say the A+ exam, A+ certification is not a worthwhile thing you should worry about. Why is that? And of course, the people that tend to answer those for some reason are people that don't have the A+ certification. So they tend to answer with very broad generalities. One thing that they said was, what, do you just want to go work on a help desk? And I thought, well, that's what I did. That was my first job. Of course, I'd love to get a job on a help desk. If I'm right out of college trying to find a position, that's exactly where you should be. It's in the middle of everything. You're working for a larger organization. You're learning while you're on the job. And as we were just mentioning on the last call, you're networking with people in your own organization. I moved out of the help desk into I think it was the networking administration part of that company. So companies love to move people up in the organization. It's a great place to start. So it's a great place to move out of, to move up. You don't go into a help desk position saying, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my career, because generally you're going to grow out of it. Almost everybody grows out of a help desk position. That's where you learn really what's going on. As they say in the chat room right now, you're in the trenches, you're learning what's going on, and you're now moving up in the same organization or out to another organization because now you know more than when you started.
Absolutely, I agree. So my main question when I was calling in before I heard the last caller was I've been in the help desk for about 8 months now at United Health Group here in Minnesota.
Nice.
And doing a lot of stuff, messing with VPNs and all over the country and everything. It's good experience. I enjoy it. But like you said, growing out of it a little bit. And I'm looking to get into network, an entry-level network engineer position. I got my Network Plus beginning of last month, thanks to you and my mentor.
Yep.
So I guess what my main question is, do you think that I have enough experience to get into a network engineer position? Or where should I start, kind of go off of my mentor? Or, I mean,
you said you were with United Health in the help desk?
Correct. Yeah, United Health Group.
Well, here's where our paths cross a little bit, Logan, is that I started in that life insurance company in Miami, was John Alden Life Insurance, in their help desk. John Alden Life Insurance, after I left, was acquired by United Health. So you're effectively working for the same company I started working for the many, many years ago in the same position I started working in many, many years ago. And my step out of the help desk in that company was to the networking group. So I would think you're in a very good position to move into networking from what you're doing, because I literally had your job, and that's literally what I did when I went to the next step on what I was doing. The thing that helped me, and this might help you as well, is that first you get to know the people who are in the networking group just because you're in the help desk. And what people in networking, I think people in technology in general, I think humans in general, when people see that you have an interest in something, they want to help you out as much as you can. The networking people, I guarantee you, are there on the weekends. They're there after hours because there are certain projects you can only do on the network after things have died down, after people have gone away, and you can work on the network during an outage. And they're always looking for help, especially if there's equipment to be installed, or if you just want to offer to look over their shoulder. Usually when you're in your own organization, people are more willing to have that happen. So make sure you reach out to them and say, I'd love to get more knowledge about what you're doing. I'd like to learn more about this networking side of things. If you're working on a project, you're doing something after hours, or something's happening, I'd love to be involved in any way that I can. Make sure you make that offer and extend your hand out to them to let them know there's an interest. Because almost everybody will want to mentor or bring you along with what's going on there. And then, of course, learn as much as you can about the networking side of things in your organization. If you're running Cisco equipment, learn as much as you can about that Cisco equipment. If you're using Juniper, learn about the Juniper. If you have a Checkpoint firewall or a Palo Alto Networks firewall, learn everything you can about those. You're only going to really understand the top 10 to 15% to start with. But the more you're around it, the more these things will soak in, and you'll be able to figure it out. And because you're in the help desk, you probably have a broader perspective of really what's going on in the entire application ecosystem, if you want to call it that, than people that are just in the networking group do. So if you want to help network the next big project coming along, you may have already been involved in that, and they may need people who are knowledgeable about the intricacies or at least the troubleshooting parts of that. It may be something to consider.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And that's, I feel like you're a kindred spirit. I feel like this is where it's going to go for you. So best of luck in all of those things you're working on there.
Thank you. Have a good day.
There's, how about that, huh? How about the small world colliding kind of thing there? That was pretty cool. That's one I'll remember for a while. So let's go to the 210 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hi, this is Latrenda.
Hey, Latrenda, thanks for calling.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. Hey, can you talk about the difference between LDAP, Kerberos, and TACH radius? I get confused since they all seem to be single sign-on.
Yeah, and part of the confusion is that they all sort of are, and they all sort of aren't. I think you've probably seen that. The one thing you're going to find is that they all provide a login functionality of some kind. So when we talk specifically about, let's talk specifically about TACH first, because that's probably the easiest one. These days, it's really TACH Plus is the flavor that most people are using. But when we talk about TACH out in the world and people are talking about what they're running to authenticate, and they say TACH, they're really saying TACH Plus. We're just using the term TACH as sort of a generic placeholder for TACH Plus. I don't know. It's harder for us to say the plus on the end. TACH Plus is generally, because it is something that is generally used just on Cisco equipment, it's something that network administrators and security administrators might set up a TACH server with a database of names that they would then be able to authenticate against to log into those switches or log into those firewalls or those other pieces of Cisco equipment. Now, this isn't really done everywhere, but in some organizations that are very, very large, you might have one group that handles all of the user login authentication. And I could say for the vast majority of organizations, their big, massive, centralized list of users is in a Microsoft Active Directory database. It's just this, everybody's using Active Directory for the vast majority is using Active Directory as the massive big database of what they're doing. So what a lot of people will do is if I need to log into my network, I need to log into my workstation, or I need to log into routers and switches, I'll hook everything back up to that Microsoft Active Directory database. But sometimes the people that manage the Active Directory network are different people that manage the networking equipment. And if you're trying to log into a router or a switch or a firewall, the networking group may not want to rely on the Microsoft Active Directory group. So you get these schisms, these lines that tend to get split with responsibility in organizations like that. So it's not uncommon for the Cisco folks to build their own TACH server, point all their routers and switches and everything to TACH server, and they'll manage the authentication centrally on that TACH server. Most the Cisco, the software that runs that Cisco TACH also has hooks in there to be able to link back through other protocols as well. So you've built this usernames and passwords. What if you're trying to connect a Palo Alto Networks firewall? You've got Cisco switches, you got Cisco routers. Now you have a third-party firewall that doesn't talk TACH. Well, fortunately, the Cisco TACH server also has a hook in there that can talk radius. So you can tell the Palo Alto Networks firewall, oh, just talk radius back to the Cisco centralized database, and we'll use the same usernames and passwords. Now, that's not the same thing as single sign-on, because once you authenticate that one time, your process is done. There's no more check-ins. There's no tickets that are saved somewhere. It doesn't remember who you are. There's no cookies. If you need to authenticate to another switch, you have to type in your username and password again to authenticate to that switch. All you're really doing is authenticating against a central database instead of a database that might exist on every single switch or on every single router. So that's TACH and Radius. We tend to see them used very similar ways depending on whether you're running Cisco equipment or not. The databases for in the Cisco device, the databases that are Microsoft Active Directory, and databases that are used other places like in Linux can be stored or retrieved in some very common ways. One of those common ways is LDAP. LDAP is just a very common protocol to be able to access information that's in a database. And so you'll find that the Cisco software and even Microsoft's Active Directory database can be queried via LDAP. So that's yet another protocol to complicate our life because it's something that now do we have this Palo Alto Networks device authenticate via LDAP? We could turn that on. Some of these devices can authenticate in many different ways. They can use LDAP, they can use Kerberos, they can use TACH, they can use Radius, and then you have to choose which one you want. Sometimes you can choose one or the other. If you're authenticating against a Microsoft Active Directory database, you could choose Kerberos or LDAP because that Active Directory server probably can talk both of those languages back to you. It's up to you. And that's one of the problems I think that makes it more complicated to remember is that all these things seem to be doing the same thing. Well, in many ways they are. They're certainly performing the same function, which is I give a username and password and it tells me if I have access. One of the things that Active Directory does is provide that Kerberos front end though. And there's other databases that can do Kerberos, but I use Active Directory because it's just the vast majority. It's the biggest one you're going to find out there. Kerberos is interesting in that it's not just authenticate me into the network, but it also has this fancy system of giving me a ticket once I've authenticated, which it's sort of a golden ticket that says you are who you said you were. And now you can show this ticket around the network to anybody without giving your username and password, and it's authenticating you. It's like having a little special ID for a certain amount of time on the network. LDAP doesn't do this. Kerberos is the only thing that really does this. TACH doesn't do this. Radius doesn't do this. Kerberos, this little ticket it's giving you is fantastic because now I can log in one time, truly single sign-on, and I get this ticket. Now, obviously, you can't see the ticket. It's just something on your computer. But now when you go out to print, the print says, I'll know who you are. Do you have a ticket? Oh, yeah, sure. Matter of fact, I do. Here's my ticket. Oh, well, I know who you are. Here's the authentication. Here's the rights and permissions that you have on this printer, and you can print. And you don't have to put in your username and password again. You can simply print to the printer. Invisibly, magically, it works because of this fancy ticketing system that Kerberos has. It's something that, it's one of the big reasons I think that Microsoft, for all of their obvious flaws, has built this very well-honed, centralized database system that allows me to manage all of my Windows devices quite nicely and be able to set up a single sign-on invisibly, simply, and automatically and use it on my networks, and it works really, really, really well. And that's why whenever you start working through this, it's a very nice way to provide that single sign-on without having to even go through any of the heavy lifting involved with other systems.
So, like, the difference between Kerberos and LDAP would be like if you want to do word processing, you could use Microsoft Word, you could use WordPad. They both do the same thing, but Word has more bells and whistles.
In many ways, yes. Kerberos has that ticketing system that allows me to keep the ticket. It's something very specific to Kerberos. But if I'm just trying to authenticate to a switch so I can log into the switch to perform functions on it, maybe I just need to check a single username and password right now. I can authenticate using LDAP back to a database that can talk the LDAP protocol, and that may be what I use on that switch. Also, switches and routers, because as you can imagine, Kerberos with this ticketing system, and there's encryption involved, and there's a synchronization of clocks that has to happen. A lot of these switches and routers are not going to bother with that. They just need to have someone log in. Why do you have to have all this overhead of having the clock set properly and then managing this ticketing, this public key infrastructure, and do it? Why don't you just ask if the username and password's correct? And that's why it's so simple to do LDAP and so much more complex to do the Kerberos. But effectively, they're performing the same thing for you. They're authenticating. But there's the extra special stuff that Kerberos adds on.
Okay, great information. I appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for calling. Thanks for all your support too, and thanks for watching all the videos.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
The whole stepping through all of those different authentication types can be a challenge for Network Plus, for Security Plus especially. There is so much that you have to know, and unless you've set up an LDAP database, a Microsoft Kerberos Active Directory database, you've set up a switch or a router to authenticate to those, it may be worthwhile to grab manuals for a Cisco firewall, a Cisco switch, a Palo Alto Networks firewall, a Checkpoint firewall, just to see the authentication options that are there. You might be surprised at how many different authentication options are there because everybody's network is a little bit different. They keep their data in a different place. There's different politics involved. It's involved for all of that. And in almost all of those cases, Junie's asking in the chat room that they are AAA servers. TACH is a AAA server. Provides that authentication, provides that authorization, it provides that all of those pieces involved in tracking and logging what's going on with AAA are there with TACH, they're there with Radius. An LDAP database is going to provide that. Kerberos is going to provide that. All of this can be used for AAA. Absolutely. But some provide you enhanced capabilities or more flexibility in what you're going to be able to do. I think that becomes handy too with all those. And it's really one, I think once you start working with it, it becomes a little more obvious what you're going to use. In many environments, you walk in, oh, what are you using to authenticate? Oh, well, we're using this to be able to do that. So it makes sense from there. In the other chat room, people are still having questions about the earlier question we had about disabling services in Windows 8.1, and system configuration doesn't have the disabling services link anymore. You can't use msconfig to do that. I've got the slide here. If you were in Windows 8 and you were using, let me find it. Let's scroll back. Scroll. Did I miss it? Here it is. If you're in Windows 7, you've got this. Here's the Windows 7 system configuration. That's not it. That's it. Whoop. Here's the Windows 7 system configuration. So that's it. System configuration. There's a tab here. It says Startup, and you can click on and off the things that you want to start up. If you're in Windows 8.1, Windows 8 or 8.1, and you click that Startup tab, it's not there. There's nothing there. You could start system configuration from the command line. It's not going to matter. It's not there. It says to manage startup items, use the startup section of Task Manager. And they even put a nice link in there that says Open Task Manager so that you can just click on that and Task Manager will open up. And there's a startup tab in Task Manager now. So it really doesn't matter whether you start msconfig from the command line in Windows 8 or not. The functionality is not in system configuration anymore. That's what I was trying to get to with that question. So I apologize if it was convoluted in that. That's where that was coming from and working with those. Back to back to, I think we got open phone lines, so we're in pretty good shape there. But my voice has had enough of this, as you can probably tell. It is. I'm trying to either get a cold or get over a cold. So I think that's a perfect time to end the study group. I want to thank everybody for joining the study group. It's been a great beginning of the new year. I look forward to everything that we're going to be doing in 2017. There's going to be some great stuff happening here in 2017. Join us next week, same time, same place, for the Network Plus study group. Or, of course, we've got another one of these planned for next month. You can always find out about all of that at professormesser.com/calendar. Thanks for joining us this time, though, and we will see you next time on the A+ Study Group.